Editing. It's the one thing that stops so many creators from clicking upload button.
Well, I can confirm.
I get it. Just thinking about spending so many hours on editing can get you off track. But what if I told you that you can edit your videos in just 1 hour?
Are you sure about that?
And finally start uploading consistently, even as a complete beginner. And all this while still keeping people hooked.
I still don't know how you do that.
I've been editing videos for, I guess, 5 years now. I've had 3 YouTube channels. I worked for a video editing agency. And maybe I'm not the best editor in the world. I don't have that best aesthetic touch that some talented creators have. But what I'm really good at is at doing it fast.
That's impressive.
Because I really want to get the job done and go ahead and hang out with my friends. That's who I am. I rush a lot to get free as fast as possible. And now I'm gonna show you the little tips that help me to become a really fast editor and have a video done in just 1 hour. So that's the exact video that it took me an hour to make. I have it on my channel, so you can go ahead and watch it. So the biggest problem I see that people do is that they get so involved in the editing, they want to add this little touch and this little detail and this text and this animation and this transition, and it's getting so overwhelming for them to do, for people to watch, and it takes hours to make. What I offer is to focus on the actual function and purpose of editing, which is first structure, then illustrate, then emphasize, in this exact order. This is exactly why now very simple videos with whiteboard, with just people talking in front of the camera, they blow up. Because a lot of us are tired from this flashy editing. We just want genuine, raw videos where people talk about what they're passionate about. So let me get this burden off your chest. You don't need fancy editing to do well on YouTube. You need just 3 things: structure, illustrate, emphasize. Now let me show you what exactly I mean by that. By structuring, I mean make it easier for a viewer to understand where you're at, what you're now reviewing, and what's gonna be next. So this is important to do in the beginning when you do your content preview, when you talk about what you're gonna talk about in this video, okay? And then you fulfill the promise that you just gave. And you do separate your videos in chapters. I do that with coloring. That's easier for me to understand where the first chapter is, the second, the third one. So as you can see, I promised to give 4 chapters. Now, I gave the 1 chapter, then I'm giving the 2nd chapter, then I'm giving the 3rd chapter. You won't believe it. Then I'm giving the last chapter. Everything that I promised, very well structured and with just simple white background and black text that took me 1 minute to make. So that's very important for structuring. What also can help to structure your video is music.
It's about the music.
It's a good manner, let's say, to change the music after the intro and after every chapter that you make. At least, if you are really in love with how music changes your video's vibe, then you can go ahead and do more. But one of the very important things that music does, it structures your video and gets viewer hooked in the beginning of every chapter by the fact that you actually switch the music, okay? To sum it up, you can structure with chapters, sub-chapters, also lists, as well as music. Now, the next function of the editing is to illustrate. I think there is even a quote. It says that it's better to see something 1 time than to hear it 100 times. That's why it's important to illustrate your points in the video. The easiest way to do that is by text. But if you want to go a step further, which is also not taking that much time, then go ahead and show pictures. No need to add some animations if you're short on time or if you lack the skill, but just add the picture right next to your face. And it's gonna illustrate your point way better than you repeating it and talking about it time and time again. What else did I use? B-rolls also function to illustrate what you're talking about, and it's also making a video more engaging with minimal effort needed, especially if you batch create your b-rolls and just use them in every video you make after you filmed it just once. That's exactly what I do. So this was filmed, I don't know, half a year ago, and I used it for a video that I recently published. So that's for illustration. Also, you can use definitions or quotes to illustrate your points. Don't do this all the time, you don't have to, but sometimes it's just adding this little visual touch that helps illustrate your point and understand your content much better. Now, the third thing, emphasize. Without emphasis, your speech and the whole narrative may seem monotonous, but if you emphasize some words with your intonation, but also with something that you do in the editing, it's changing the whole vibe of the video. It's not monotonous anymore, but it's like this: emphasis, 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 and it adds this dynamic and makes your video way more interesting. So how can you emphasize what you're talking about? You can write text like this at the bottom of your scene to emphasize certain thing that you said that you think is very important for viewers to hear well. What else you can emphasize? You can use sound effects like risers or booms. This also emphasizes some words that get the attention, especially like a riser does, or the sound effect boom can show that something you said is really important. It might be even life-changing. So that's how you can emphasize. But the text is the simplest way to emphasize, actually. So you can use it all over the place if you don't want to overthink it. Another way to emphasize is to get a zoom in. You see? How
Additionally, you have to do that.
I'm zooming in some of the phrases so that it seems like the camera is moving towards me, but it's actually just to zoom in. And it emphasizes that phrase that I was saying here. So to emphasize, you might use quotes, text, sound effects like risers or booms. You can use zoom ins, zoom outs, something like that. And if you want to spend as little time as possible, there's no more work you need to do. Just structure, illustrate, and emphasize. Now, what else helping me to edit super quickly? A great tip, by the way. Don't rewatch. Like when you edit some edits, for example, this illustration to your video, you know what we tend to do? Then you're like, how does it look? So what you do is you move your pointer, what is it? Like this blue thing, I don't know, blue stripe, you see that, right? So you move this blue thing like several moments before and you click space. For me, it's space, I don't know what it is for your software, but you click it and you like sit in here and rewatching and rewatching. And it seems like it's just a couple seconds that you spend on it. It's actually repeating time and time again when you add in something to the videos. And this can take hours if you combine all this time spent on just rewatching your video. I recommend to completely ditch this habit because it's useless, since you will still rewatch this video when you are done with it. Okay? So what you do is, let's say you decided to place it here and you're like, it starts at the right place, then you go here, it ends at the right place, and then if you're really worried how it's going on in the middle, you can just do this. And then you move on with your editing. Do not ever rewatch your edits. I promise it will save you hours. Now, another thing I do is double editing. So what does this mean? If you're really short on time, you should use timers, because if you limit your time that's allocated to do some work, you automatically will spend less time on this work. So what I do is I have my timer, I start it, and I have only 40 minutes to do stuff, to do my editing stuff with the video. And I do something that's called very lazy editing. So I just add things that are crucial, like really structuring, some illustration, not even all the time. And if I have some ideas that I think would be cool to make, I add a chapter mark here. For example, here I wanted to add list, but the time was off and I couldn't add it. And that's fine because we're short on time and there are things that we won't do and we should be fine with that. Especially since we've taken care of the most crucial parts, which is structuring. And then I go ahead and like edit it very minimally. You see, I don't add any transitions, any sound effects, just putting things on the timeline. And I do have some big spaces between certain edits. You see, this all is without editing. This all is without editing too. This all is without editing. This is a screenshot. This, like, I didn't even edit it at all. Just added the circle of my head. Only when I'm done with the most basic editing that can go in a video, I can now look at my timer and see how much time I have left. And if I do have time left, I decide to continue editing. And if I don't have time left, I don't. It's very hard to accept sometimes because you do want to add transitions, animations, graphics and stuff like that. But what you need to do instead, you need to force yourself to click Ctrl M or whatever it is for you and start exporting what you already have. But if you do have time, you go ahead and do the double editing. The video is still good. It still can be rendered and published, especially if you gave valuable information in the video itself. But if you have time, you add transitions, you add animations to the videos, you add more visuals and probably some animation as well. You can add graphics, anything you want in order to apply all your vision that you had for this video. If you have time for this, of course. Then the last thing that's the most crucial, I think, for video editing is to learn your shortcuts. Shortcut keys are the most effective thing that you need if you do editing consistently. I won't tell you all the shortcut keys because they're different for every software, I guess, but I'll show the ones that I use the most and I think you must know if you edit your videos, which is ripple delete. You know, when you edit your videos, you constantly cut things and move things to cover the cut, you know? What I mean is you go ahead and take the razor tool and you're like cutting right here, right? Maybe right here as well. And it's taking like forever. Then you move your mouse to the selection tool, you click selection tool. And then if you need to delete this part, you go ahead and drag this to stick to this previous part. And this is the most terrible thing that you can ever do while editing. Instead, what I do is I use ripple delete. For me, it's Q and W. If I have ripple delete Q, you see that it's cutting what's on the left side from this pointer, and it also moves it to the place where the beginning of the clip was. Now, the W for me, it may be different shortcut for you, but you must learn it. When I do the W, it does the same, but it's cutting everything that's on the right side from the blue pointer. And it is very, very helpful. It took me only one click to do that. It's day 22 of my 30-day YouTube challenge, and I hope you're still staying with me. Thank you very much, by the way. Was this useful? Let me know if you want more videos on editing, and I will make them for you. This was the previous day that I filmed. This is the next day of this challenge, and I hope you have the most wonderful day. Grab your gift in the description. Goodbye.